Strayed is a Rust-like VR game that has not really had any lore drops until the recent released Research Monument that we got on March 6th. We've had monuments like Prison or Sawmill that were destroyed and abandoned, but we never really knew why. The entire island is in ruins. There isn't a single monument without damage or holes in its compound walls. But with the new update, we finally got a lot more information about the world of Strayed. The Strayed Island used to be a tourist island. It might not look like that anymore, but it has been confirmed. The only real signs of tourism left are the lobby in the research lab and the gas stations scattered around the map. The exact location of the island is still unknown, but inside the Firewatch Towers and a few other monuments, we can see maps of Ohio, USA. The closest major body of water near Ohio is Lake Erie at the Canadian border, so that's where the Strayed Island could possibly be located. The island is owned by Beacon, a fictional company that controls a large amount of land there. Honestly, my guess is that they own the entire island. Beacon used it for both tourism and for secret research projects involving human cloning. But Beacon wasn't just focused on cloning. They also refined oil on the island through their oil refinery, even though the source of the oil is not known yet. However, it must be close enough to the island to make it worthwhile to refine the oil there. This hints at the possibility of an oil rig being added to the game, but honestly, I doubt that, because the developers are trying to create a game that is different from Rust. For example, instead of the Tommy gun, we have the KP-31. Beacon even sold products such as Beacon energy drinks, which can be found in almost every monument, one of them being the Oceanford Monument. It is a massive military-style monument out at sea, heavily armed and protected by huge weapon systems. It was a fortress in World War II because of all the relics around the monument, but my guess is that it has been picked up again, looking at all the modern stuff around it. It seems like it was built to defend the island itself, but this protection didn't fully belong to Beacon. Beacon likely realized they couldn't secure the island on their own, which is why they hired another company, Strayed Tech. The thing is, like a wall, the Oceanford could have two meanings. Either it is to keep the enemies away from the island, or to keep something that under no circumstance should leave the island in. Strayed Tech appears to handle the island's security operations, which has been confirmed to me. They likely operated the Oceanford and probably the Prison Monument before it was destroyed. They also seem to develop advanced weaponry and military equipment, including non-researchable weapons like the M4, military pistol, P90, grenade launcher, but also holographic sights, attachable flashlights and lasers, which are researchable but seem to be rather military standard. What they could not provide was catering for their guards. For any consumables and needs for survival, they used resources provided by Beacon. They probably couldn't manufacture all of the guns and attachments directly on the island, which is why I believe that they have factories and military bases somewhere in the mainland of Ohio. This is also where I think supply drops and lock crates come from, but I'll get back to that later. That is pretty much everything we know about the island before the disaster. Now let's talk about what happened at the research lab. The Beacon Research Lab was working on human cloning. Inside the monument, there are books and displays openly talking about cloning research. The beautiful designed lobby almost makes the place feel welcoming to the public. But what was not publicly shown, what was really happening underground. The cloning itself was hidden from the public, and so was the way the clones were treated. And honestly, what Beacon was doing down there was incredibly inhumane. Looking around the monument, you can immediately tell how secure the facility was. Massive compound walls, guard gates, and security checkpoints. If you go downstairs inside one of the guardhouses, you can even find what looks like a military storage room with lockers and gun racks. Although all the weapons are missing, one of the first things you notice in the center of the monument is the huge elevator. This elevator was likely used to transport cloning equipment and even vehicles into the underground sections of the lab. Something interesting I noticed is that the elevators don't actually require keycards or any special access. That could just be for gameplay reasons, but lore-wise, it would mean that it wasn't very difficult for someone to get inside and uncover the secrets hidden below in the facility. As we explore deeper underground, we find storage rooms, servers, and strange glass pods roughly the size of a human body. Then we finally reach the cloning room itself, a massive machine surrounded by rows of pods. This is where the cloning happened. Pods were most likely to transport or contain the clones, and according to documents and graffiti found around the lab, all of these clones were created from one man named Dinkelberg. Honestly, it's a pretty funny name, but devs also had a lot of fun making this game. As you can see inside of the research monument, they trolled a lot, but I don't think Dinkelberg himself was anyone special. He was probably just a random test subject chosen for the experiments. Although who knows, maybe there's more to him than we realize. All I know is that the devs based him off a real life person, but I do not know who. Inside of a meeting room near the lobby and all the way down in a different room, we can find top secret documents. These explain a lot about the lore and I will be reading them in this video. Top secret, classified. Mission, objective. The subject known as was given birth on this day at approximately this afternoon. The experiment seemed to be successful and all the plans are going accordingly. Soon we will begin to understand the repercussions of our actions. However, due to protocol, it's more than likely that the subject will never leave this island. Here, the island is conveniently located in. There, no one shall ever expect or hope to find any of the experiments done here. Studying these documents, we can clearly see that the subject is Dinkelberg, and the following information is about date and time of birth. The last redacted note is for the location of the island, which I suspect is somewhere in Lake Area. Successful clones were kept inside of observation rooms with one-way glass, so scientists could study them without them being seen by the clones. Failed clones, or clones that became violent, were transported in the pods to another room where they were burned in industrial oven. We have another document that proves this. Mission, objective, operation is well on its way. We're secure well over and make sure they do not escape the island. This mission is of top priority. If we are to fail this mission, the repercussions would be devastating. We cannot allow these to integrate with our society. So I make myself clear, we cannot under any circumstances fail this mission. If you have to, I authorize the use of to subdue any who resist. The first redacted note could be for cloning, in the sense of Operation Cloning, or it could be for Operation Dinkelberg, which I think is more likely. This is because neither of these terms reveal too much about the operation. The second blank space is the number of clones secured in the facility, which is definitely above double digits. The third one is quite clear and definitely just means clones. I could not make anything out of the fourth one because there is no context around it. The fifth one definitely means something to do with lethal force or deadly action, because it definitely describes how the clones are burnt in the ovens. The last one is quite clearly just clones. The ovens are an efficient way to dispose of problems, but an absolutely horrifying one, which explains why Beacon kept all of this hidden from the outside world. Before being burnt, however, the clones undergo a small operation inside of the Blue Vault, the room containing the industrial clone burning ovens. We see operating tables with some sort of tracking devices on them. This is because when the clones were created, one of the first things that was done to them was to inject a tracker into their neck. This had to be operated out before burning them. This also leaves open the possibility that the clones were under the influence of narcotics during the operation and were still burned while under the influence. So they probably did not feel the pain of being burnt alive. However, it was still gruesome, and I imagine not all the clones were fully under the influence of the narcotics when they were burned. But why were these clones fitted with these trackers in the first place? The thing is, they were not just kept in the lab. They were deployed outside the facility for testing. The map in the monument shows the island from above, and I think it shows the regions where the clones roamed, and which tourists could also access. As I said before, the island was also a tourist destination, but the tourists were unaware that they were being used as an illegal test subject by Beacon. The clones approached the tourists and killed some of them. We know this because the documents said that the clones were under no circumstances allowed to leave the island, so the authorities knew how deadly these clones were. This obviously is still a lot of speculation, but who knows. The trackers were obviously used to track the clones, so if they attempted to leave the radius of the island, they could be found and well killed. In the green and red vault in the research lab, we can see that the clones were tracked by the satellites of the satellite monument, and the information was sent into the rooms in the vault. So the scientists always knew where the clones were. It shows that Oceanford did the same thing as Satellite did, but I doubt that they were tracking the clones. I think that the guards in the Oceanford tracked down the clones trying to escape the island and killed them. But like in every good science fiction story about some science experience, something eventually went wrong. At some point, the clones escaped. Maybe they developed abnormal strength or intelligence. Maybe the cloning machine malfunctioned. Either way, the clones managed to break out. As the beautiful environmental storytelling tells us, we can see that the clones probably escaped through the air vents and spread through the facility. My guess is that they fought the scientists and the Straitech guards, eventually reaching the armory and taking weapons for themselves. After that, they probably freed the remaining clones. I doubt that there were enough clones inside of the lab to completely overrun the island at first, so it's possible that they started cloning more of themselves using the machines. The clones then started expressing their opinions and feelings through graffiti all over the monument. Some examples are, "We are all Dinkelberg" and "We want 10x back." When making all of the small graffiti text, the developers added some lore and some that are just them making fun of the community. LFG stands for looking for team, which could mean that the clones were lonely, but I think it's probably just trolls. Same with the text "I was here" and "I was here again." But some had real lore in them, like "We are all Dinkelberg." One of them that really caught my eye was the one that said "It all loops." With this obviously they mean the wipes. The game wipes every week or two, and the devs could have meant that. But before I start talking about time travel and wormholes, I'll just say it's another troll. Talking of the developers, many of their names have been made into graffiti, and these are scattered around the monument as well. Eventually, the entire island collapsed. Tourists, scientists, workers, security forces, everyone was wiped out by waves of Dinkelberg clones. Another possibility is that the cloning machine itself malfunctioned and started endlessly producing clones on its own, flooding the island with them and causing total chaos. Now the only living thing left on the island are the clones themselves, along with animals that slowly began repopulating the abandoned island. They have not been added to the game yet, but they're coming soon. Nature started reclaiming everything. Meanwhile, the clones destroyed whatever they could, even sabotaging the cloning machine itself. Over time, they likely turned against each other and split into groups. They built shelters for protection and started raiding one another for supplies and weapons. This is the current state of Strayed. We are here. We are Dinkelberg. We're all these clones roaming the island. We are the ones that made the groups, fighting each other, killing each other, which is the game itself. And I think that is beautiful game design. Now we come to the supply drops. Inside of the documents, we see that even the people working there did not fully understand the supply drops themselves. Top secret, classified. Mission, objective. Have you ever wondered who is behind the various airdrops we receive here on this island? It has been years since most of the staff abandoned the island. And for what purpose? And whose authority is it should continue to receive supplies? Personally, I have heard rumors. The military base is ordered to supply the airdrops, but I am under the expression that they are not told why. The first redacted note shows how many years it has been since most of the staff left the island, and it appears to be in double digits. The second one is unclear, but it appears to be information that has been redacted such as details about clones or important names like Straitech. I don't know about the third redacted note, but I guess it's the author asking if it was Straitech. The fourth one is the rumor that the author has heard. I think it's about the origin of the airdrops, and the rumor was probably true, otherwise it might have not even been redacted. The last redacted note is probably the location of the military base in question. I still think it's somewhere in Ohio, and that the military is Straitech. The supply planes never stopped arriving even after the island fell. Originally, these drops were probably meant to support the scientists or Straitech forces stationed on the island. But after the outbreak, whoever controlled the mainland may have not realized the clones were still alive and continued dropping weapons and supplies onto the island. Maybe the goal was to let the clones wipe each other out, although honestly that sounds like a terrible plan, because the survivors would only become more heavily armed and dangerous over time. Another weird detail is the weapons found in these drops. Why would Straitech send scrap-built weapons like AKs and LMGs instead of standard military gear like M4s, military pistols, and proper equipment? That part is probably just gameplay logic so the loot system stays interesting. At the current point in the lore, the island is completely overrun by Dinkelberg clones fighting each other with weapons supplied by the military. There don't seem to be any normal humans left on the island, although future AI enemies could possibly include surviving scientists or Straitech soldiers still guarding certain monuments. But I doubt it's going to be scientists because that would be too similar to Rust, so we're probably going to get Straitech guards as the enemy AI. But that is all just speculation. Another interesting detail is that the clones don't appear to have any body hair. Maybe the cloning process couldn't properly replicate human hair growth. Since character customization was mentioned in the roadmap, maybe future updates will explain that the clones slowly develop the ability to grow hair over time. Something else I expect in the future updates is more evidence that the island used to be a tourist destination. Maybe we'll eventually get a harbor for larger ships, or a reworked airstrip turned into a proper airport where supply planes once landed. A lot of this is still speculation based on research I've done in-game and conversations I've had with people close to the developers who know more than I do. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and hopefully I managed to teach you something about the lore of this Strait Island. I would love to hear your speculations about everything in the comments, or you can join my Discord server. Strait is currently available on both Meta Store and Steam for around $14.99, although prices may change over time. Unpaid advertisement. Thank you for watching.